Welcome, everyone. We have another amazing show. There were supposed to be four of us, but there's two of us because there's a lot of wind and a lot of interference coming from because we come from all over the place. So today, Valerie and I are going to do double duty and cover for everyone. So thank you. You are going to want to continue the conversation to think like a CEO and earn like a CEO. So we will get started.
Empowering women on a global scale. Welcome to Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. Powerful Women Today is on a mission of inclusion, rewriting his story to include her story, and empowering, raising, and amplifying women's voices with professional speaking, publishing, original podcasting, and web TV. And now here's your host, the founder of Powerful Women Today, Carolina Billings.
Hi, Valerie.
Hi, Carolina. It's great to see you again.
It's great to see you again. My goodness. So the topic today is something that is extremely dear to our heart, both of us, which is to think like a CEO, earn like a CEO. And a lot of people may be thinking, yeah, right. But you know what? There's a lot to it. So you're a specialist when it comes to helping people understand how to elevate and how to show up in such manner that there's instant credibility, instant authority, and not in a bad way, but in a way that you're there ready to serve. So tell us a little bit about your practice and what got you so, because I know you're a very passionate lady.
Yes.
What got you so passionate about it?
Well, I've been running my own business since 2002 when I left corporate America because I was tired of making everyone else rich. And, I had hit the glass ceiling and the salary cap in my career. And so I decided to start my own business. And I ran my business very, very successfully and became one of the top leaders in my niche within 5 years.
Wow.
And it's because I really focused on how, I know it sounds silly, but how to think like a CEO, because I had been working in large Fortune 500 companies. I had worked directly with CEOs and executive vice presidents. And so I had a lot of visibility to how they approached business and how they approached problems and how they generated revenue for the large companies. And as I was running my business, I kept running into women who had started their own businesses, primarily for the same reason that I had. They wanted to escape the salary cap. They wanted more flexibility and control over their lives. And I noticed that although they had great ideas for their business and they were very, very passionate about what they were providing to their service, the service or products they were providing to their customers, they weren't really achieving the potential that their business could achieve because they weren't running their business like a business. Unfortunately, for a lot of women who get into business, whether it's a product or service, they do it because they want to help others, right? They want to provide a product or service that helps people. And helping people is great, and I'm a big fan. And I like helping people too. But you also have to help yourself to be successful, because the more successful you are financially and in your business, the more customers you can actually help. If you're struggling to make your monthly payments, to pay your virtual assistant, to pay your accountant, to pay yourself, you're not going to be able to achieve the full potential of your business. And so I got to a point where I was just sort of sick and tired of seeing other women struggle.
Tired, yeah.
Tired of seeing other women struggle. So I decided to become a fractional COO or a business coach that teaches women how to think like a CEO so they can run their business in a way that's fulfilling for them, but also a way that makes money. Because if you have an unsuccessful business, it can't grow. And if you have a successful business, it can grow. And if you can grow, you can help more people.
That's right. And there's something you said about that you just said about the mindset, right? And especially if you're a business coach, especially if you're any kind of coach,
Mhm.
in my opinion, you're the brand.
Mhm.
You are the
Yes.
proof. You are the proof that this works,
Yes.
right? So if you're not it, then why should someone be buying from you? And I understand
Exactly.
when you start up, you're not there yet, right? You're not a six figure, multiple six figure, seven figure. You're not there yet. But just because your business is a startup doesn't mean you are a startup,
Right.
right? So let's start there. That seems like a lovely place to start. So you are right now, we have a massive exodus of women leaving structured corporate, and we're going to talk about that next. Leaving corporate to start their own consulting or their own practice, and all of a sudden, they're starting a business,
Mhm.
right? But they themselves are not. They could have been an executive for the last 40,
Mhm.
50 years. Not maybe not 50, but you know what I mean, 30, 40 years, right?
Right.
How do you position that?
Um, I think I think that the general population, thank God, is very aware that people are getting fed up on corporate America and that people are leaving and starting other ventures, entrepreneurs, coaches,
Mhm.
consultants. And so, fortunately, it's very easy, whether on your website or your LinkedIn profile or whatever is your favorite mode of marketing, it's very easy to say, I have this experience in corporate America or working for someone else. And these are the things I accomplished, measurable things that people will understand and will resonate with your target audience. And now I've decided to go and do things on my own, right? Which is sort of what I just said. I said I had done these things. I was successful. I was generating lots of revenue. It was working out for me. And now I'm helping other people do that too. It's kind of like, when my daughter was younger, she had a medical issue that caused us to go to Texas Children's Hospital, which is a renowned hospital here in the United States. And as part of the number of specialists we met with a nutritionist. And she came in and she was literally eating a donut as she came in, right?
Lollipop.
Finishing eating a donut, drinking coffee, and then you could see that she had a pack of cigarettes in her little lab jacket, right? And then, we didn't say anything about it. And then we sat down and she started telling us what my daughter should be eating to be healthy and this whole kind of thing. And we had gotten our previous nutrition plan for a doctor at Stanford who was very well renowned for that particular specialty. And so we were reluctant to change the nutrition plan to this new plan that was being suggested. And so when she left the room, my daughter looked at me. She's all of 12 years old, right? She's all of 12 years. She looks at me and she goes, Mom, I'm not taking advice from a woman who's eating a donut and smoking cigs and thinks that that's healthy. Right?
Exactly, right?
And that's what, when you're a coach and consultant, you really have to demonstrate that you're living or embodying what you're helping people with, because people who come to coaches or consultants are very aspirational, right? They're looking for something else. They're wanting to improve their lifestyle to get to that dream that they have in their heart. And if you don't embody that, they're not going to have confidence that you can help them get there. That doesn't mean you have to be perfect. That doesn't mean you can't eat a donut down and then, right? We
But
all
you
have a
have to
little,
be authentic and credible. So if
yes,
you're starting your business, you need to say so.
yes,
And celebrate, hey, just left 40 years of corporate in this
right.
niche. I am going at it on my own. Join me, right? Like, it's still authentic. You still need to learn how to leverage that experience onto your years of business,
Yes,
right? In undercurrent. That being said, that only carries you for so long.
yes, yes. People will believe in you until you give them a reason not to.
Mhm,
And giving them a reason not to means you're either not helping them achieve the results that you promised,
mhm,
or they can see that you're not walking the talk. I had a client who, very nice person. And he was very, very skilled at telling people what to do. And he did none of the things that he told people to
mm,
do. And this was very, very obvious, right? This is obvious on his social media, in the events that he hosted, and people wouldn't buy, right? And he was stumped as to why people weren't buying. And it was because he wasn't doing what he encouraged other people to do. He wasn't doing the processes and procedures that he told people they had to do to be successful. So even though he was very well intentioned and generally cared and really wanted to help the people, right?
Mhm.
They didn't find it believable. So they didn't buy.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it goes to modeling. But I think there's a third reason. So yes, people may not understand the offer, or they may not get what they
Right.
thought they were getting, right? And but there's also a big still, which I'm surprised, but there's still a misunderstanding of the difference between coaching and consulting. Your
Yes.
coaching is done with you.
Mm-hmm.
Consulting can be done for you. And that's why they usually vary considerably in price. One that is consulting versus coaching. So before we go there, so there's all these coaches. So let's go back to behind the counter with the coaches, right?
Mm-hmm.
We were speaking in this show a week ago. Actually, there were four of us that were just explaining how we landed here. How did
Mm-hmm.
we get here, right? And many of us had, actually everyone in the panel had left corporate
Mm-hmm.
at some point, right? And we were all kind of speaking, like recovering corporate bots. And we were saying, oh, I left corporate 3 years ago. I left corporate 5 years ago. And after, because I usually watch the show afterwards just
Mm-hmm.
to enjoy it, because when you're facilitating, you don't get to enjoy it. But I was able to watch it afterwards, and all I kept thinking is, my company is a DBA. So we DBA as Powerful Women Today.
Mm-hmm.
Actual name is the High Consulting Group Inc. We are a corporation,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it was after that I'm thinking, have not left corporate. I am corporate.
Right.
I am the new face of corporate Canada, right? And
Right.
that post that goes around social media that says there are, 5 times or 1,000 times more CEOs named John, that there are CEOs, that there are women CEOs all over the world, right?
Right. Right.
And it's because more men, and I'm not talking big 500-year-old legacy corporations. I'm speaking most of your SMEs, right? Between
Mm-hmm.
solopreneurs and big,
Mm-hmm.
Fortune 500, are because men, when they started a business, they instantly went to, I am the CEO. I
Mm-hmm.
am the president. And that
Mm-hmm.
is right. There's that many more, right? So when we ascend the throne under the new face of corporate Canada,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or corporate America, sorry, so Canada. We were speaking of Canada in the green room. So now I'm going to start saying A every second word or something like that. And when we ascend to the upper echelon of our business, be the CEO, be the
Mm-hmm.
president, right? That's how we shift all of these inheritance of male, nothing against men. Like, good for you that you got there, before we did. But you know what? Now it's like we are nudging our path there. And
Mm-hmm.
by saying anything other than we are corporate. So thinking you left corporate, what does that mean? What
Mm-hmm.
statement are you making? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you make a really important point. I think most people think of corporate as sort of a bureaucratic organization that maybe has tones of you need to be political to get ahead. And maybe the real word we should be using is business, right?
Yeah.
Because any corporation is really a business. And that's one of the reasons I think that particularly women business owners again, they often go into business on their own because they want to take control of their lives, their earning capability, and they want to help others and serve others. And they're maybe focused more on helping and serving, which is very valuable. But men, when they start a business, tend to be more focused on the numbers.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
The gross revenue, the profit margin, the cash flow. And women tend to believe that if they provide good service, those things will follow. And hopefully that is true, right? I mean, that's my approach. If you do good things for the client, the money will follow. But you also have to be able to manage the money. And many women business owners, entrepreneurs, and coaches don't spend much time tracking their financials or managing them or even noticing them. And what I find with a lot of women is that they don't have an economic goal for their business, right?
Ooh.
Yes, they're just hoping to, have enough money left over in the checkbook at the end of the month to pay all the bills. And they're not necessarily even paying themselves. So when I'm working with business owners, I encourage them to start out, when we first start working together, I encourage them to pick just one economic goal, because setting an economic goal is a skill set that you want to develop and you want to strengthen. And some people are at different places. I have some people who, when we're first starting out, they feel they're not making enough money to pay themselves, right? Which is the whole point of a business, right? To pay yourself. And so we start out by saying, okay, this month I'm going to pay myself $50. What do I need to do that? And then we want to pay ourselves $1,000. And then we want to pay ourselves $5,000 and $10,000. What
Keep
do
going.
we have? Yeah, keep going. Always up. It's always aspirational. And in the process, by starting with a really small financial goal, you help develop that mindset and that skill set without overwhelming them, right? If I started out by saying, this month you need to pay yourself $10,000, it'd all probably tip over, right? That'd be the end of the conversation. Right. So I think that that's one of the differences between men and women when they first go into the business. Now, obviously, women who are successful develop that skill set and the ability to set economic goals. Ideally, any business at any given time has at least 3 economic goals. But it is a skill set that we need to encourage women to develop and assist them in doing so.
Yeah. Hi, Simone.
Hello.
How are you,
I
darling?
love the conversation. Yes, very fine. Thank you. And thanks so much for having me on the show today.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, we're still waiting there was a delay on either the arrival of the email or something, but we'll get here. We'll get here.
Absolutely.
It is as it's meant to be. So we were speaking about, and there's a couple of things I want to follow up on that you just said, Valerie. One of them is, sorry, 2 before I forget them, because I have attention deficit, so I have to say it. I don't forget. One is the having financial goals, because I also think as women, we often don't do that even at the personal level.
Right.
Yes. So that kind of transferred to the business. And then the second thing is that I think, at least from what I've witnessed, that men oftentimes foresee enough to have a startup capital, a startup budget, right? So they're not hoping to sell their way into being an ongoing concern.
Right.
So they have a budget, and that budget needs to, whether it's a loan, whether it's they mortgage the home, whether, whatever they did, right? It's like their risk for tolerance is higher. And I think if a man, and correct me if I'm wrong, and Simone, jump right in here, because you're nicer than I am. If a man goes to a woman, to his partner, assuming it's a female, so I don't know, you do the probabilities here. Let's just go traditional to keep my brain straight. If a man goes to a woman and says, I'm starting my own business, I'm starting my consulting, I'm going to take $20,000 out of my 401k, 50,000, 100,000, and I am starting this business, right? I think it's more likely that that's going to happen, that if a woman went to her male partner and said, I am going to take a mortgage on the home, right? And I am going to now invest in gamble, because starting a business is a gamble.
Mm-hmm.
It does require skill, but there's also the element of, being at the right place at the right time, right?
There are a lot of unknowns. Yes.
Correct. So I think there's a lesser likelihood that women would get supported under the exact same scenario. What do you guys think?
I take a breather on that one. Going back to Valerie's point around the financials, right? Because I think it kind of plays and will wind. So just work with me on this one. There is you're in terms of being risk averse. Yes, women are most likely to be very risk averse in terms of the dollars. Even having that conversation with their partner, that even might be sort of asking for permission and waiting for them to say no, right? And go, okay, you're right. We won't do it that way, right? So really thinking about the mindset. But really, what it comes down to is the relationship with money, personally, business wise, it all ends up the same way. And
Mm,
I find also too that yes, women come because when we do consulting work, the coaching work, that's the first place I go. What are the financials? What
Mm-hmm.
are you trying to do here? What's the business model? And they get, oh my gosh,
yeah,
what?
and question, like, because if whatever you're doing cannot withstand scrutiny, how solid is it? And a lot of times when you ask women, more so than men, and this has just been my experience, I'm not saying this is the rule. I am just saying women, we tend to get a little bit more defensive
Hmm.
to scrutiny than men, I think.
Unfortunately, I think women are still socialized through most cultures to um, to be less self-confident and to have more self-doubt.
Yes.
So when you're asking them a question about that, they definitely come across as defensive, and maybe they are being defensive, but oftentimes the root of that is they've been socialized and experienced a culture that ingrains self-doubt in them. Now, certainly you don't want to go to the other end where you're just so convinced that everything about yourself is fabulous.
You're non-coachable. Yes,
Right?
that point, you're non-coachable. Yeah.
Right. But especially when women are starting out and they haven't yet achieved a lot of success in their
Hmm.
business, maybe even financial success in their business, I think there's still a lot of that self-doubt that just sort of lurks underneath, and it's so easy to come out. And that's why I think it's important, for those of us who are trying to mentor and encourage and coach women to be successful, to just be aware that that's a sensitive issue for many, many women, not because of who they inherently are as a person, but maybe how we've socialized
Absolutely.
them in their
Absolutely.
experience.
Absolutely. And just going back to also when you talk about paying yourself, right? That's a huge thing to even
Right.
just wrap your head around. Pay me? What do you mean, me? And so that's where I also break it down too when I work with them to not this huge lump sum, but all right,
Right.
let's say you have $1,000 a month.
Right.
How are you spending? How are you putting away money for your taxes? What percentage are you going to put away for taxes? What
Mhm.
percent are you going to put away to grow that in the business? What percent are you going to put away now? Oh, so now we have some monies. What percent do you want to pay yourself on a monthly basis off of that 1,000? And then now they, with that practice and understanding, it's like a light bulb goes off. Like, oh, okay. So
Mhm.
we have to plan for this. Yes, it's a planning process that takes place to help them really understand what the drivers are for their business and what the inhibitors are for the business.
Right. I
Yeah.
think that's really important, the drivers and the inhibitors of the business. I think that's an important point.
And you know what? I'm sure there's a lot of initiatives in the United States to help women, start their own businesses, and a lot of diversity and inclusion programs and all that. So I speak for Canada, the Canadian market, and we're just a little bit different in in how we go about things. So here, there's the government plays a very progressive role in funding women businesses and funding. All of the banks are kind of crown corporations to some degree. So there's a bank called the BDC, which is the Business Development Bank, and is owned by the crown, right, by the government. And they cannot give money away. They cannot give money away. Like, they have programs for women to start their businesses, like 10, 20, 40,000, just seed capital, nothing outrageous. And women will not take it because they do not want to get in debt. They don't want to start their business in debt. That's the mindset.
Yes.
And then the BDC does exactly what Valerie just said. When the few of us that have gone through the process, right? I got a seed, I got a grant actually, early on. And when they look at your financials, the very first thing they look for is if you're paying yourself.
Yes.
And they'll tell you, if you're not paying yourself, I didn't have that problem, but if you're not paying, I'm a big profit first kind of girl. If you're not paying yourself, that means that your business, should something, God forbid, happen to you, doesn't have enough of a budget to pay someone else to run it. Right. So having that payroll, and just like Valerie said, like maybe it's $50 to start, right? And maybe and there's other incentives to put yourself on payroll, such as, matching your 401k or CPPs or all these things. But that is so important. So here's where we all love women entrepreneurs, and the four of us, because Stacy, her link went missing. But she's here. She's flagged us that she is here. She is here. She is here. She said, I am here. Anyways, so she's here, and she'll contribute to us through comments, I guess, through the banner. But the thing is, we all champion, women entrepreneurs. And I understand that some of us maybe embraced that whole professional corporate executive culture more than others. That's not a determinant of your success, by the way.
No.
Because I've met more success, in like, all things being equal, I have met successful people that resell oils and kind of representing somebody else's brand than PhDs. Because somehow in PhD school, they don't teach us how to make money, right? It's like, how to think and how to write and how to do research, but not so much how to make money, which we're changing that. But anyways, so that's not a determinant. However, I do believe that is a determinant of the mindset. I do think that if you've been an executive in corporate, you have that aspiration of being the top dog.
I also think too that as part of that does play into it, right? I agree, but I also think too, just thinking about, and I'm just looking at my lens, right? So it's right, wrong, or indifferent. It's my lens. Growing up, was surrounded by entrepreneurs. My parents, right? They had their job, and they also had their other jobs that they had. My aunt has been an entrepreneur since God knows how long, and just being in those conversations and listening to business talk was always around me, and so it was nothing foreign, right? And so when you have that background and people are talking about dolls, and it's not a shameful talk, it's like, all right, how do we grow this? And serious talks.
It's a tough time.
Absolutely.
Understanding the business are cyclical.
Absolutely.
And you go through tough times.
Absolutely.
And that's not necessarily a representation of you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I like that. I like what you're saying, is that sometimes in generational entrepreneurial families, there's better understanding, right, and support than if you're the first.
Right.
You're the first person going out.
It's a risk. Yeah, that's a risk, right? Because what about a doctor and lawyer? What about being a chief?
Right.
Yeah. And the thing is that, like, there's pros and cons to both. Like, nothing is 100% good or 100% bad. But the reality is that, I don't know, I think working for someone else in corporate is the easiest way to make money. You're not an entrepreneur.
Well, like you said, good or bad.
Because of peace. You know what I mean? You're an entrepreneur because of your desire to have self-destiny
Mhm.
and to know that you can make a difference and to not hit that ceiling, right? That we were
Right.
talking about, because in my corporation, there's no glass ceiling, right? And so it is,
Yeah.
it's a complete shift. And I do believe it's generational because we were talking about that imposter, we hear that word imposter syndrome and a lot of people think that is fake, but it's very real. And
Mhm.
actually Dr. Alex also has who's one of our mentor experts, Dr. Alice Swanson Ridley. She says that there is a selfless syndrome that goes with the imposter syndrome, which causes you to always put yourself last.
Yeah. But to that point too, it's look at what's been considered the norm, what's been considered enough, what's been considered successful, and what's been placed in front of us as that. And if
Mhm.
we go against those things, then are we less than? Look at the way in which we are paid as women, and you look at intersectionalities, right? It's automatically you get a discount on your wage just by being a woman. So that also plays as part of that imposter syndrome. Like, am I really worth it? Do I believe I'll have a seat at the table? And so these are things that we have to overcome in terms of our mindset, but also just in terms of how we show up in these spaces,
Yeah.
right?
And Stacy's telling us that she sees that with her clients too. I told you she's here. She's
Hey, Stacey.
working the chat. So yeah, so on that point, Simone, and I know it's a grid, right? When we say women, it's not all women,
Right,
right?
right,
Just like when we say men, it's not
right.
all men.
Absolutely.
It's a spectrum. But I was speaking, so let's create that grid. Are we speaking generationally? Are Gen Zs and millennials feeling imposter syndrome?
Mm,
Or is this more of a boomer
mm,
Xer residue of
absolutely,
how we were brought up,
absolutely.
right? And then we go through the diaspora of race, like, how does that fit in? When we were just speaking about, cities like big cities like Houston, which apparently takes you 2 hours to drive across, which is, I'm still processing that. Because in Toronto, you drive like, without traffic, like 40 minutes out of the city and there's nothing. It's like crickets, right? But let's see, I lost my train of thought. Darn it, squirrel. What I was thinking is, we're in cities, in big, cosmopolitan cities. That's where we're seeing, that diversity heritage, I'm going to call it, right? That fight, generational fight. And actually I work with one of our mentor experts, specializes in helping children get scholarships and grants onto Ivy schools.
Mm.
And she was saying that children of new American and Canadians, because she works with Canadians as well, have such a huge culture shock going to universities, because all of a sudden, you may have been able to, I'm Hispanic, and maybe if you grew up in a Hispanic household and everyone around you was Hispanic and you generally believe the world was such, and then you go to a school that's outside of that influence, and all of a sudden it's extremely disorienting.
Mm.
Right? And how do you come home from that? How do you decide I'm going to start my own business?
Yeah.
Right? When your family is telling you, no, stay safe, stay in your job. It's like, get a job. You know what I mean? Like, how do you even begin to reconcile that?
I have to say that I think that's why groups like Powerful Women Today are so essential and critical for women's success. Um, because being an entrepreneur, running your own business feels very, very isolating.
Mhm.
Because
Mm,
statistically, in your natural group of friends or where you grew up or the people that you know, statistically, most of the women are going to work for someone else. They're not going to be running their own business. And so it can feel very
Mhm.
isolating when you only know maybe one or two other women, and maybe they're not in a similar business or they don't have a similar work style or similar priorities. And that's why groups like Powerful Women Today are so essential, because you can connect with people, and you don't feel as alone anymore. You don't feel as confused. Is this a normal thing to think? Or, am I being a little crazy here? Does everyone else struggle with this? Am I the only one?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
And that's why I think this organization is so beneficial, is because there are a variety of women from a variety of walks of life pursuing many different types of businesses, but we're all able to affirm and support each other. And there's bound to be people here with a similar personality and work style and approach to life that you're able to really connect with and sort of validate yourself and what you're feeling, as well as get support, both
Learn from each
emotionally,
other. Yeah.
emotionally and skill-based support.
Yeah, we're getting comment. There's a whole slew of comments that I'm kind of keeping an eye on. So this is leadership is neither a title or a position. Exactly. Exactly. And you know what? A lot of funny enough that depending where the comments are coming from, we're not always able to see who makes that comment. So apologies for not knowing your name. But it's interesting because two thoughts come to mind. One is many of us that have worked directly for CEOs when we were part of the bigger, traditional setup, we were so close to the fire, to the hit. We were like in the kitchen, right? And it's almost a little bit like having a bad parent, like you swear yourself, you're never going to be like that, right? You're never going to be like that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So when we're leading our businesses, we're trying to be different, right? And also, I think a big reason for that, because I have worked for or seen people do these or go through these, friends of mine in their jobs, is that the CEO is a reluctant leader. They're not the CEOs because they care to lead this organization. They're the CEOs because they have to delegate and they have to expand in order to grow the business. But that is very different than having the ability to get engagement and motivation and leadership from people. And that's where you come in, Valerie, I think, both of you, because you would come in and almost like coach the CEO. Is that not right? Like, am I conveying?
Yeah, it's very easy in today's business for CEOs to be very outward focused. They're either focused on driving up stock price, or they're focused on the next quarter or annual report. They're very financially driven. And the challenge with that is that they then become disconnected as a leader from the organization. And if they aren't delegating that leadership to perhaps a leadership team that they have, or they're just, abdicating it themselves, then the organization doesn't feel engaged. It doesn't feel motivated. And eventually it will not be as successful as it can, because there's no buy-in from the team, because there's no strong leadership.
Because
so I think that's
from the leadership.
Right. Well, and that's because they think their goal is just finances, just financial results. And that's a challenge that we have in business to ultimately be successful. If you look at like Amazon or Apple, yes, they're obviously extremely financially successful, but that wasn't their primary goal.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a couple of things we can teach them, I'm sure.
Right.
I want to say hi to one of our very own, Judy Wendling is in the house. In Judy's Liz, sorry. Liz, I'm seeing Judy and I'm seeing Liz and I'm seeing Jackie. So please, all of our own. Liz specializes in selling professional services, which goes to the core of that confidence that we talked about, of setting those financial goals, right? Because you don't have a product to sell.
Right.
You know what I mean? To stand behind. Because even if I am inadequate, if I own a restaurant, but my food is amazing, people will come. You know what I mean? Like, you still need business skills, but you know what I mean? Like, you still terrible, right? But when you're delivering, and I don't cook, so really these are concepts. But anyways,
That's
when
why
you
I'm laughing because you have a cooking analogy.
and I have a lot of kitchen metaphors too, and sports metaphors too, because sports go right up there with cooking. But the thing is, when it's professional services you're selling, when it's your knowledge, right?
Mhm.
Is being able to have that thick skin and to have that
Mhm.
ability, that it's not ability, that tolerance for public failure, right?
Right.
Is just being able to go, not la di da, because sometimes I am guilty of that I kind of overcompensate. It's like, oh well, and people are like, no, oh well, like that did not go the way it was supposed to. But I mean it like in, "Ah, don't worry about it, right? We're going to be okay." But again, you need to articulate a little bit further than just say, oh well, right?
Mhm.
But it's having that maturity. Is that what it is?
I think it is.
Maturity.
Maturity as an entrepreneur, business owner, to know that you are going to fail and it's okay, right? And with each failure, all you need to do is pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and start all over again. I think that's a Disney song, isn't it?
It's not. No, it is.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a Disney song. And
Totally
and
lesson.
and it's important to remember you're not the only one. We've all experienced it.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
every time we take a risk, we risk experiencing it again.
Right.
Mhm.
But as long as we take into consideration of learning, right? Step back
Right.
and figure out what
Yeah.
we learned from this. Otherwise, you're just going to keep repeating and repeating and
Right.
wondering, why am I not getting why am I getting the same results, right?
Right.
It's
And
back to being coachable, right? And that's why partnering up with a coach or I'm not sure a mentor, because I think a mentor, by the very nature of the relationship, is not a relationship of equals. Where I think
Mm.
a coach is about questioning. You know what I mean? Like really helping you figure it out.
yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. The
Right?
answers are within. It's just a matter of how are you thinking about it, how are you reframing it, how are you evaluating those decision processes and helping them support that.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think that's a really good point, Simone.
So tell me, Valerie. So at what point in the business journey
Mhm.
should someone reach out to a fractional, which I love, by the way, a fractional CEO, right?
Anytime you feel stuck and you're not sure how to get unstuck, that's the time to reach out. Because working with a fractional consultant is sort of like buying speed, and I don't mean the drug. I
Oh,
mean,
I was, you just got my attention there for a second.
buying speed, because what you're doing is you're getting access to a qualified, experienced people whose job is to solve problems and break through
Yeah.
barriers, and you're hiring them to help you do it faster.
I
Mhm.
That's
love
what you're
that.
doing.
I love
That
that.
accelerator
Absolutely.
factor, right?
Yes, because
Absolutely.
With,
you could maybe keep trying to do it your own and the DIY approach and take a class and try to figure out, but if you just get someone to say, this is what you need to do, and this is the order you do it in, and this is how you do it, you're going to get there a whole
why
lot
wouldn't
faster,
you?
Absolutely. I
And
right?
love,
remember, in
I love
business,
that.
time is money. Time is money,
Yes, yes.
right? So
Success loves
you can,
speed.
if somebody cut, can cut a step or two,
Mhm.
hello, right? Like, where do I sign? That was Judy, sorry, one of our very own, Judy Cirola, who also special, and we're gonna have, this mixture of experts, because each time we reach a topic with from a different perspective, we end up with, opening a whole new set of insights. And so Judy specializes in culture
Mhm.
and in team dynamics, right? Which takes us to the next point. Where at the business growth does someone reaches out to you, Simone?
Sure. You know, I always say behaviors can either propel a business or hamper. And if
Mhm.
you start having teams and they're not collaborating, they're not communicating, decision making is taking twice as long as it should be, and you're not getting that performance effectiveness, call. That's when you want to say, hey, take a step back and evaluate what's really happening here. Everyone's on their own hamster wheel. and they think they're doing very well because they're moving. But what is it? It's just activity masking behaviors. And
Are you
so
so
really,
and it goes back to money. In full disclosure, like I did start my career as an accountant, so clearly there's is I'm still recovering from it. But we always, oh, I wish I knew then what I know now. I would have been
Mhm.
such a much better CFO, right? But yes, I did say it. We always used to say a sale's not a sale until the money's in the bank,
mm,
right?
Mhm.
That was kind of like a pushback to the salespeople, right? It's like, yeah, it's great that you got it. A sale's not a sale until the money's in the bank. And at the end of the day, right? And you're in business to make money. Otherwise, be a volunteer. If you don't need the money, for the love of God, right? Be a
Mhm.
volunteer. Like
Mhm.
find, be an artist, a creator, right? But if you need the money, and we're about to launch our brand new campaign, and I am going to plug it here for the first time, which is the first thing that there's only one thing that women cannot afford, and that is to only have a single income.
Mhm.
And if you are a mom, that goes from 0 to 10, 10 being the highest in urgency. You cannot afford to have a single income.
mhm,
And I know it's tough because it all carves up. It's all about time, right? Like a
mhm,
limited resource. So how am I going to make all this extra money appear? There are ways. There are ways.
Mhm.
If we're just starting our on-demand income activator, second income activator on demand, which is, in Powerful Women Today, when we say, championing women and financial independence, emotional and financial independence, it's not just a slogan. Half the time we spend figuring out, so how do we make it happen, right? That we're saying, you should have more than one income stream. Like, go figure it out. It's like, no, no, you can actually come here and, and activate something,
yeah.
right? At
Mhm.
least get started.
And I think that's what makes it different than other networking groups. I wouldn't even call this a networking group. I would really call it like an empowerment group, which is really it is, because
Yeah.
it's not just coming together and talking about it. It's coming together, thinking, activation, embedding. And I think that those are some of the things that are valuable as part of the PWT network.
Yeah, and Stacy, of course, one of our own, like within leadership, is, yes, an accelerator.
Yep.
And yeah, and the reason I was laughing when you were saying networking is because everybody that works for me knows that coordinating logistically, like time, and it's just, I need to rely on people that are good at it. So
Don't
yeah,
even go there with me.
we are a doing group because I'm good at that.
Don't
But
even go
like
there with me.
organizing, oh my word. And that's another part, right? In having, Peter Principle get promoted to the point of incompetence. And
Mm,
Mhm.
as a CEO, as a
mm,
founder,
mm,
right? And let's differentiate that.
Mhm.
As a founder, by the graces of the gods, your business takes off. There's going to be a point that you are going to need someone that knows how to run a business that size.
Mhm.
And
absolutely.
unless you're getting your EMBA or you're getting, you know what I mean? Something, and I'm not even saying a PhD. I'm going to the business side. Like, this is beyond theory, right? Is you are going to need someone that can either teach you or run the business for you.
Mhm.
In knowing, we were talking about that last time. Actually, that's what brought us together.
Mhm.
Speaking about Bed Bath and Beyond,
Yes.
right?
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
In
Yes.
how the
Absolutely.
train got away from the well, no, the founders a little bit kind of crashed the train because they didn't let someone steer.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so if anything, it's worth considering. And I know even in our tiny ecosystem, like there's mentor experts that are running 7-figure businesses, right? And
Mhm.
6-figure businesses, or or they're hitting their milestones at the 6-figure, multiple 6 figures, and they want to create that freedom-based business. Well, we need someone that can kind of guide you through it, and
Mhm.
that's where both Valerie and Simone come in, because they're used to being like the coach's coach, right? Like
Mhm.
the top notch when it comes to operating at that level. And I know we all kind of do peer mentorship because I'm good at academics, but and I had the blessing of having a C-suite position in corporate, but there's still other areas of the business that, like operations, that, I'm still learning, right? And the greatest learning I can do is finding someone that is really good at it. Right? But anyway, so let's take a look at what is there. Is there anything, any tip, anything that somebody can do today? I'm a big today kind of girl. What can someone do today to assess, am I in need of a fractional CEO? Am I in need of, a culture, diversity, inclusion curator? Like, what can someone do to know where they're at?
You need a fractional CEO or fractional COO if you're spending all of your time running your business and you have no time left over at the end of the day or energy left over to grow your business.
Mm.
That's when it's time to bring someone in. Now, a fractional CEO or fractional COO works part-time for you. So some clients I work as little as 1 hour a week, and other clients I work as much as 10 hours a week. So don't be afraid to reach out to someone and say, this is my need. What do you think that would look like? What would the price point be for that? How do you work? Because you will get to a point where if you spend all of your time on the day-to-day operations of your business, you won't grow and you'll hit a plateau. And no matter what you do, you won't be able to break out of that because your business gets to a certain point where it takes more time to run because it's bigger. Okay, that's the good news, right? Yay. The bad news is you don't have enough time to do it all yourself. And that's when you want to delegate it off to someone else. And for myself, what I do when I work with clients is I come in and I work with the organization. And my goal is as the company grows, eventually it will need a full-time COO or CEO. My goal is to develop people who are already on your team so that they're able to step up into that role when the time comes. Then I leave and move on to the next person.
Lovely. That is, you know what? And it's even a discovery session where you could even say, okay, come back to me when you're at this mark.
Right.
And because I've been told, because of course I have a coach and a mentor, right? Because I believe in the system. And he told me, really 300,000 in revenue, you can, and even like a high successful, kind of go-getter can maybe take it to the 500,000 on their own.
Right.
But after that,
That's
life. Like
half a million is about where it shifts.
Yeah.
And then you can't get to 1 million on your own. You just can't.
Where would you want to?
Well, we hope you wouldn't want
no,
to.
Honestly. It would be mental. Like, no, absolutely. And Simone, how about you?
Sure. I look at it from the performance effectiveness within the teams, within the CEO, because what happens is that the CEO, like you said, sometimes can be disconnected to the teams. Oh, I have people there, but is not really doing the intentionality work to put guideposts in the organization. So role clarities come into play, right? How are we making decisions? How consistently are we meeting together and huddling and talking about the vision, talking about our goals, making the next set of rocks and things and milestones for the next quarters. That's when they come in from that perspective. So again, I kind of unmask, okay, these are the outputs that you're trying to achieve. What are the behaviors that are breaking down the process here? And looking at and working with the individual team members, in addition to collectively working with the team, to one, create that safe space where people can start talking about real issues and not conflict avoidance, but also two, working with them individually to understand their own setbacks, at least in terms of some of the things that are holding them back and helping them to propel forward. So that's how I kind of work from that perspective. And so, yeah.
It helps with accountability. I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I just had flashbacks. Sorry.
I didn't want to be
I was in
cryptic
the
here.
tunnel for a second in the vortex. I was just thinking how it depends on the personality of the CEO, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've known people that never wanted to be the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, accountability suffered, right? But when you work with an external person that's coming in just to call a spade, they don't have, there's no thing in the game. I'm just here to review outcomes.
Right.
I think there is a little bit more responsibility, like self-responsibility, right? And in accountability. In that way, I think the team would know you're all accountable, including the CEO, right? Like it's not a blank check. It's actually more responsibility,
It is.
So yeah,
It's a self-awareness that they did individually, but then collectively, and they can actually start talking about those things, right?
Yes.
Wins as well as when things are challenging or bothering them, and being able to allow that, create that space to do that.
Yeah, and it's like one day you grow up to understand your parents. I think one day you grow up to understand your boss. If you had one, right? It's like, now I understand. It doesn't mean you agree,
Absolutely.
but you understand.
Yeah.
So guys, this has been absolutely incredible. And we have so many. Our next issue of Powerful Women Today magazine is coming out in about 2 weeks. We're just like above the moon. And of course, all of our mentor experts, I think all in this issue, made it to this issue. And sometimes, people are away or, they skip an issue. But this one is like a fully loaded one. It's like where we're cutting back the fillers on this one. It's like 100% content, great value. So be on the lookout, and we're certainly promoting. And I think all of our mentor experts, our business sisters that showed up and support us. I just saw Jackie Joy and Judy and Stacy. And as I said, sometimes if they connect from a different channel, I'm not able to see the name, but I know you're all here, and we wouldn't want to do it without you. So doing it all together. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Valerie and Simone.
Thank you.
And you can we'll put their connection, contact them, follow them on LinkedIn and see what their knowledge and content is. And also visit powerfulwomentoday.com, mentor experts. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
I will see you next time.
Empowering women on a global scale. This has been Powerful Women Today with Carolina Billings. To learn more about how you can join and transform your life and the lives of women everywhere with professional speaking, publishing, podcasting, and web TV, visit powerfulwomentoday.com. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, YouTube, or wherever you like to listen and watch your podcasts.